All right, all right, all right. Welcome to this episode of Warrior Week Parables from the Pit. My guest is my friend John Stefano, graduate of Warrior Week 56.
56.
All right. Okay, man. Good to have you here.
Thanks.
John, let's just kind of roll back and figure out what brought you to Warrior. What was your first interaction with Warrior and what pulled you in, man?
Yeah, it's actually a really serendipitous story. I was in the middle of my pit actually when I found Warrior. I was separated from my wife and I was just basically drinking a lot every day. I was in the middle of blowing up my businesses, and by chance one day I was having dinner, or actually it was lunch. It was lunch at a restaurant in San Diego. And a bunch of guys who looked like tough motherfuckers just come out of this hotel next door. And there was hundreds of them, literally hundreds of guys dressed in black, say that with t-shirts that say, do more, suck less. And I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for my table, and I asked one of the guys, and he basically says, yeah, man, we're a mastermind. And I'm like, and the person I was with was basically just asking questions. And next thing I know, I'm talking to one of the guys, and I forget who he is. I didn't keep touch with him, but essentially he says that basically we concentrate on having our life be balanced. And it was something that I was deeply looking for, a balance in my life. Because I've always been a workaholic, and I've always put myself and my family second and my work first. And God knows I didn't have a connection with God. So it was something that I was desperately looking for. And next thing I know, I'm on a 2-day deep dive, watching videos of Coach Garrett, listening to your Warrior Week podcast, Tales from the Pit, and I'm like, I gotta do this. And this was on a Saturday. Monday morning, I basically say I'm all in. I have a call with you a day later, and you said, well, it's too late to get you in for the January Warrior Week, and I guess it was WarriorCon 3 that was happening in San Diego. And he says, too late to get you in for Warrior Week 55, but I can get you into 56. You got a month ramp up anyway. And that was it. I mean, it was just really just by like chance that I was in the right place at the right time. And I saw a bunch of guys coming out, like looked like they had their shit together. And I wanted that. I needed that. And I was just really blessed to be able to be in the right place at the right time.
Beautiful story, man. Sitting, having a steak, and then seeing a bunch of crazy guys going for walk and talks. Fuck.
Yeah.
I remember at WarriorCon 3, we did 2 morning workouts early in the morning. And dude, we had 800 guys showed up, I don't know, it was 6:30, whatever. And we walked all across the lake or the river, whatever, the ocean, whatever that is over there on the other side of the park where there was a private area. And I have footage of that. We did push-ups, burpees, bear crawls. It was an incredible scene. At the same time, it was a fucking shit show. We had guys like, left side and right side, like just cross with bear crawl.
No logs.
Yeah. It was a great experience. All right, man. So obviously it resonated with you. You've been in the pain of lack of harmony, lack of balance. Working was always priority. When I will be successful, then I will allocate time for everything else, right? That's the main story I had too when I walked into Warrior Week 7 years ago. That was exactly my story. When I will be successful at work, then I will take care of everything else. But like, this is priority number one. To be a man, I have to be successful in business to be able to achieve or have certain status. So you come to the process of Warrior Week. Obviously, there is a month of buildup. And by the way, Warrior Week 56 ended up being a very special Warrior Week. A lot of things happened. There was a lot of common issues. It was also the movie that came out of that ended up being a very special movie that touched thousands of people's heart. We've played and played over and over in many of our conferences. The entire essence of Warrior Week 56 was you, right? This idea of you.
Yeah.
So it became actually very special. We had one of our coaches that gave up in the middle of the game.
That was interesting.
Self-exposed to the reality and literally showcasing the power of Warrior Week itself. That Warrior Week filters all fucking serpent and liars, right? You won't be able to, it just filters it out. It's out of nobody's in charge but the man upstairs. So having said that, what was your experience, John, in the process of the buildup?
The buildup was really an interesting awakening at looking at myself and how full of shit and how full of stories I really was. The amount of self-discovery that I made just during the buildup. I mean, Warrior Week took it to a complete whole new level, but the buildup in itself and just finding out that process was something that I really needed and wanted was really gratifying. It really started putting me in touch with myself. It was just something that you basically had to start to discover your ego so that when you get to Warrior Week, you can kill it and start your life. Really start your life, without the thoughts of you having to be right all the time, or without you having to have every fucking answer, or without you having to just pretend to be the man all the time. You mentioned that we had a common theme. One of the common themes that we found out in Warrior Week 56, which is, I think, was one of the things that unified us, and I still keep in touch with some of the brothers, is that we all had abandonment issues, and we all thought we were tough guys and tough motherfuckers because we had to live through that abandonment by our father or by our whoever abandoned us. For me, it was like my father, but the having to face that and look at it and really live with it showed me who I was. And, for me, I ended up like really loving my father a lot more because he helped make me who I am because of that experience,
Yeah, it's true. The common theme in Warrior Week 56 was a lot of the conflicts that took place with our fathers, and the story, and there was a lot of alpha guys in 56, big motherfuckers, big muscles, like just fucking rough guys.
Yeah.
And the idea was really to investigate the truth, not accept what memory or history has provided. Like literally stop living in your fucking memories and transcend from that place to the place of now. What is right now? Where is my dad today? What is my relationship with that? And what happened? What did he know? What perspective did he have? Never asking yourself these questions, but the expectation was set over the lack of connection. And part of it, connection is a two-way game, man. Part of it,
100%.
You look at it, you're like, okay, I felt disconnected, so I continue to be disconnected, right? And so the discovery of that was absolutely courageous to see you guys go through it, because it's not easy, man. Like, no, it's not easy.
It's easier to play the blame game, like this motherfucker, he just got up and left. And the hard thing is to look at it from a viewpoint of right now and understanding it and really understanding it, like looking at it from who you are today as a man and figuring out, well, what really did happen. And
that's the whole point.
Would I be put in the same?
It, right?
Yeah.
If you understand it, it doesn't mean that you agree with it, but there's like a level of empathy, understanding what has taken place, that you're open to listen, and investigate. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean you agree with it. I'm not saying that's your morals. I'm
Or
not
that we
saying those are
make
your
the same
values.
choice. Yeah, or that we would make the same choice, but looking at it, just putting yourself in that view, in their shoes, and that viewpoint just allows to open up the vulnerability and the gateway for forgiveness, so that you can move forward and have better relationships with your son. Because one of the things that I found out for myself is that I was doing some of the same shit to my son, and it's just like a breaking the generational chains of disconnection by actually allowing yourself to like say, oh shit, I understand it. Let's fix it. Just looking at it for what it is.
Absolutely. So what was your did you had a specific moment during the build-up? Was there one specific day that man, it just you remember till now in the build-up?
Yeah. So in the build-up, there was a moment where you had to go into just a place of nature, and I wake up pretty early, and there was one day that I just woke up and I went out for a run, and I found myself looking at the sunrise and really felt a really deep connection with God, and found myself like understanding that there is something bigger than me out there that created all of this. And so that's when I remember that specific moment of starting to bring up my spiritual connection and really understanding what the being part of the core four really is.
Beautiful. Fast forward to day one, Warrior Week, and we walk into the night, into the pit, right? Day one,
Yeah.
chaos started day one in the morning, and as chaos settled in, it channeled its way into the night, and into a place where every man was no longer going to hold anybody's hand. It was just like you and what you have to face and what you allow yourself to feel, and what you surrender to in your own mind, right? In your own stories, facing the fear and the past, and even to some extent what's holding you a prisoner now. Talk to us about that experience, the pit experience. Obviously, what did that look like for you, and what can you recall from that experience, man?
Well, there was the whole build up to the pit experience was actually kind of surreal. A lot of it had me going through, things that I'd never gone before, and me battling. I can't tell you how many times I thought, well, why the fuck am I here? Why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? I mean, there was physical challenges, and there was like an emotional roller coaster ride. And then I was in the pit, and I started yelling in the pit and really, really letting go of everything. Just really letting go of all of the things that have been weighing me down my whole entire life, and all of the shit that I kept replaying in my head, and my issues with my dad, and my issues with my family, and me beating myself up for having an affair and separating from my wife. All of that stuff was, it was literally the most cold, liberating moment of my life. Like, it literally let everything go. And fast forwarding 10 minutes till after we got out of the pit, it's almost like you couldn't have planned a better scenario. There was this huge full moon. I don't know if you remember. There was a full moon, and you said, I can't plan this. God is here for you guys. And then the euphoria of all of the guys just coming together out of their pit and just being one, and being a unit, and being together was just, I was out of my skin. I was out of my body.
It was a surreal experience.
Completely.
We 10 minutes before, as you're talking about, we are in the alley full of mud. And
yeah,
literally it's completely dark. there is red lights from the flashlights that are the only thing that are actually making you see things. I remember specifically at I looked at one of the guys, Alex, and
Yeah.
and he was covered with mud, and because of the red light, it actually looked like blood. So I was like really concerned. I thought he hit his head somewhere or something happened. I had to look at it 3 times. It was an absolutely surreal fucking moment. It was scary because he was covered with, imagine, because he doesn't have any hair, right? So he's covered, completely covered with what it seems that at that time was blood because of the mud that he was covered with mud by this
Yeah.
orange light. And then anyway, that horrific scene and what we all experienced inside of that. And we came out of the pit and we walked, and in between the trees, we're standing, and this moon in the darkest fucking night rises, and it's this perfect moon, man. It's number one, it's big. It's one of those big moons, and it's perfectly round. And at that point, it brought light into the darkness in such that it felt like it's in the middle of the day. We could see everything very clearly.
Everything. And it felt like it was actually like literally guiding us completely out of the pit. It was metaphorical. It was surreal. It was just one of those things where the emotion just like kept building, and everybody was just in such a great, amazing state of energy that we forgot that it was 30 degrees out there. We were covered in mud and water and tired and hungry and freezing our balls off, and all of that went away. Everything was just like nothing else mattered but that moment of like coming out and realizing that first we were down there and now we're like looking up at like this complete guiding light of the moon. It was just incredible.
Yeah, and
transformative.
Literally, it stated something that has been stated in history, which is in the darkest night would rise a moon.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. That was the that's the divine lighthouse.
Yeah.
You see it, I see it, many in the world see it at the same time, right? And that's the beauty. In the ocean of the sky at night, there is the only lighthouse visible to many of us, at least those living at night.
Yeah.
So, that experience, obviously unique by itself. We lean into the next day, and this is where, the pivoting moment is for the majority of our guys that come in, the experience of a hand of God. What was your experience inside of that, the following day on the beach?
The hand of God was one of my favorites. One of my most one of the deepest things that I've felt in my entire life. Actually, I know this sounds cliche, but literally the second that I started perceiving that God was answering me was the second that there was a bunch of clouds that parted and the sun literally the rays just completely hit me. And I remember Coach Matt was holding me, and it was like I felt like I couldn't be held down. Like I was just like coming out of my entire like being and just completely connecting with a higher source and a higher power. That I realized that it's been a year and almost a half since I went through Warrior Week, and I tap into that very regularly. It's rare is the day that I don't tap into that energy, because I felt like I needed to harness it and keep it and covet it. Like I needed to go hold it and draw from it. We went and picked up rocks at the end of that day, and I found one that was like a triangle, and I still keep it in my backpack. And it was for my 3 kids. It looked like literally was a little triangle rock, and each point was one of my kids. And I still have it in my, like when I switch briefcase to backpack or whatever, I carry it. I put it in a special pocket, and I still have it just to keep that day with me. It was really deep, man.
Beautiful. Few days later, we were reminded in a short visit about the pit once again. We all went in a boat, and we went in the middle of the fucking ocean. And again, very late at night, in the middle of 10 miles across the shore, and this fucking boat, and there was turbulence, and there we are again, knowing that that's how quickly and fast that we can find ourselves in a place even worse than what we experienced on day one, right? And so, what was the feeling that night, man? You recall that moment?
Yeah, there was I felt afraid, of course. Everything was pitch black, and I felt the real possibility of being lost in the middle of a sea, especially because we were on our way, like we saw the island. You could see the island from there. You could see the island from that big dark spot. And it really hit home, man, like being so close to the goal and what you're working and going towards, and then just the possibility of being stranded in the middle by yourself without, I'm not a strong swimmer. I still can't believe you fucking jumped in the water, man. That was crazy. That water was freezing.
Fuck.
I still can't believe that. But the possibility and the metaphorical like symbolism of just being stuck in the middle of black water without anything around you to save you or to hold on to, but like, and having something so close as the goal in front of you was just a wake-up call. And I think the metaphor was that you just have to keep rowing towards the island, and you just got to keep fucking rowing, and the rowing is doing the work. And when you stop doing the work and you stop rowing, you're gonna be stranded.
And you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and it stuck with me. That was really deep for me. That was really, it was almost as deep as like the cemetery evolution. That was the one that hit me the most. But that one, and when the moon came up, those were the hand of God. Those like my top 4 memories from Warrior Week.
That night when we came back, I said something on the boat. I said, this is like, I said, if we choose to live this kind of life, we choose to live in a life that we want to be in light, we want to be in happiness, in joy, but life will take our boat and sometimes bring it in the middle of the fucking ocean. And it's going to require courage to deal with it. It's going to require a different kind of man to deal with the night. It's not about being a macho. It's not about being an alpha,
A lot of brothers are going through that right now, actually, with this whole thing with COVID-19. There's a lot of brothers that are actually going through the same thing, and going through the quarantine process in Warrior, and going through the war rooms and everything has really kept me rowing. And I think that that's one of the things that I could have easily been one of the guys in the dark water without anything without any hope of getting anywhere.
That's what the drift does. It drifts you in the middle of the ocean. It's undeniable. I said it that night, not because I predict the future, just because I've seen it in the past 5 years at that time, and now 7. And truly, that night, we declared that we're going to have the courage to continuously accept that we may be in the waters, but then we can tread our way, we can swim our way back to the light. And that night, that scared one of the fucking coaches. One guy was committed to be, inside of this and do what we do. And, he panicked, and we had a conversation. And he says, this is not my place. To this day, it's a mystery. And whether we know the answer or not, the answer is known by Warrior Week itself. It's because It is just going to require courage. The proof of it is there are some men from 56 that are not here, that have chosen to be in the waters alone. And even if you extend a hand to pull them up, they come on a boat, but only to jump back voluntarily.
Yeah.
And so Warrior has this thing, despite this beautiful experience, it has a very strict thing, and that is, if a warrior wants to die, he'll fucking die. There are no saviors here. It cannot be any saviors in this game. That's what we come to learn.
Yeah.
We come to learn leadership and letting go of the savior's mentality. And so the experience merged together, and what you felt that night, as a result of all that, man, where are you today, John? Like, what has happened to John? Who's John today?
Man, I wrote a stat 2 days ago, and this basically summarizes it. And there's different degrees of the have-it-all lifestyle. What I did realize not too long ago is no matter where I am or what degree of the have-it-all lifestyle I have right now, I'm in it. I'm working all of the areas. I'm concentrating in all of the areas. I'm paying attention to all of the areas. And so will my have-it-all lifestyle evolve into something better where I, instead of having X amount of money, I have 10X of that amount of money, or I have a much better relationship with my wife? That is yet to be seen. But right now, I'm doing it. And that's one of the things that it makes you look at is like, are you actually doing it? If you're working on it and you're doing it, all you got to do is say, okay, I'm taking stock of what I'm doing right now, and I am in that lifestyle. It doesn't matter to what degree. It will always be better, or it could always be worse. But if you're in it and doing it, you can actually say, yeah, I'm in the have-it-all lifestyle. I have it. And that's one of the things that it makes me realize, where before it was like, oh yeah, when I get there, or when I make this amount of money, or when the vacation comes up, I'll connect with my wife, or when I when I lose 5 pounds by working out, then I'll start eating better, or whatever.
Yeah, so true. There's the win. There's a deal that we make with ourselves that is often the worst fucking deal, right? We exchange now for future. Like literally, when. Like I want more when than I want what I want now. And so now I'm gonna sabotage myself for the win of the future. The worst fucking deal. And hey, listen, you came to Warrior Week, life changed, you graduated from the Kingdom Challenge, and it was a special event where we all united on the island. And you almost didn't make that event. There was some stories, there was some fucking phone calls.
Yeah.
Tell us to tell the story, because it's truly worth documenting this for you as an asset, and for your children when they listen to this, but also as an example, as a metaphor for brothers that are listening to the call, that sometimes stories may prevent us to become.
Yeah, and the bottom line behind that story is that the different evolutions that we went through the Kingdom Challenge were very specific, and I found myself feeling unworthy of being there for a couple of reasons. The main reason being that I didn't do all of the work that was required, and I felt like I would be doing that entire process a disservice by taking part and by participating with guys that had done all of the fucking work, and I didn't do all of the work, and I had guilt and shame around it. And I remember the thing that made me change my mind, and it was very, very specific, and I still have it in a text message. You texted me a gratitude stat. You did a stat, and you texted me the stat, and you said how much you loved me and how we are brothers. And I was like, how can I fucking not go? How can I miss this? And how can I not allow myself to have this win when I've had so many wins and so many gains throughout the process? that your stack that you sent me just basically changed. It made me feel worthy of doing this. And you guys, there was me and one other guy, Matt, that were behind, and you guys sent the helicopter to take us to the island, and we had the helicopter basically take us by ourselves there. And I remember thinking, man, there's really very few experiences like this or brotherhoods like this of people who actually give a fuck about another person. And fuck, it's not about the money, it's not about it's not about power, it's not about any of that stuff. It's about allowing yourself to care enough for other people to actually help them, not save them, but like say, okay, hey, I appreciate you for what you are, which is what you did for me. And I will never, ever forget that. In fact, I have that text still that you sent me.
I remember that. And it was like, what? He's not coming. What the fuck? So it was great to have you there. The first day was you had to be there to look at the man on the island. You owe to yourself that experience because you've worked so hard to do that. The things that, all the fucking stories that you had to deal with, you and the other guys, right? There was this revolution that was taking place. You guys were part of that revolution, Revolution 56, against a major story of abandonment, against a major story of love, disconnection, and all of that being the end of that era, and like literally burying that into the first night, into the pit, and allowing yourself to move forward. So I'm so glad you made that experience. And that pivoted everything. Everything changed from the whole experience, right? The whole 3-4 months. Where are you today when it comes with your family, your relationship with your kids? How has that involved John versus the John that you knew literally post that day you met these guys walking around?
Well, the John that I was back then was not willing to have collisions and confront things. In some areas, I was great at it. Like, I've always been good at business, and I've always had that killer sense in that area. And I've had a little bit of success. Would I say it's massive? No, but I've always been okay in that area. In other areas, I had no confront. Like, I was unwilling to have a collision with my wife, which drove her up the fucking wall, because she's okay with having collisions. Oddly enough, it was like the other way around. She's okay having a collision, fighting, talking it out, making sure that there's movement from one area or the other. And I wasn't. And that's what eventually destroyed our marriage. And one of the things that has changed, that who I am today in versus then, is that I'm willing to collide with myself. I'm willing to collide with my kids. I'm willing to collide with my wife. Sometimes I'm even willing to collide with God. Like, what the hell just happened? What just happened? Right? And in my conversations with God, that does come up sometimes, and that does help. That the ability to be able to say, okay, no, I'm feeling this anger. I'm actually like, this is not okay, and doing something about it, other than not just eating it and having to like internalize it, is the biggest change that I've been able to gain from this. From
internalizing was it's not natural. Internalizing, is imposed, and over history, over time, it has been imposed, specifically by other men over men, imposing, internalizing to hide and to capture control and power. Those feelings are God's feeling. They were God given to you. So the giver and the creator has zero fear on hearing your fucking feeling or my feeling.
He already knows them. They're for us to express.
It's already revealed.
Yeah, it's no surprise to him. It's just basically like we just have to say it for ourselves. And the only person we're cheating when we're not doing it is us.
And you know, do you get a beating, man, if you talk like this in organized religion? You get a beating like this if you're, you know, in school and part of other organization. This way of thinking is a way of thinking that matters to you, and that's all it should matter, because it helps you operate better. And it's not about colliding with others to and put this kind of psychology in the way they're thinking. If they think like that, good. If they don't, you will still continue thinking like this. And truly, when you look at a world that has been, when you look at humanity that's been put on fucking pause right now, our momentum has been put on pause because of the whole situation with COVID-19. What kind of character requires to keep moving forward and operate? Dude, if you would be operating by their rules, if you would be operating by the hope that they're spreading,
oh, you would be paralyzed.
Paralyzed, drunk, drugged, or have a fucking bullet in your head, and that would be at it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The ability to just be able to say to any situation, hey, I don't agree with this. I'm questioning this. I'm finding other ways around it. It all comes from the ability to express disagreement and collide with something, anything.
Absolutely.
And so for me, that's my biggest takeaway. You know, I don't conform.
And these are mental models. Collision-based mentality is a mental model that if we were not given this at a very early age, and if we did not live this way, then it's a model we don't have. So therefore, we operate by the one only fucking model that everybody knows, which is compromise. Be nice. Everybody's happy. Share the fucking pie.
Well, you said it just now, a few minutes ago. They beat it out of you. I remember questioning a nun in when I went to Catholic school about Anne Frank. I remember questioning, why would God allow something like that to happen? She made me stay after class and rulered the shit out of my arm. And so these things, like, you don't ask questions anymore. You just have to sit there. Oh, okay, no problem. That's what happened. You can't question anything. Well, you can't collide.
The minute you realize that it's not safe to share your feelings, that's the end of the sharing. No wonder why you couldn't collide with your wife, because you know, the first time you collided, you got beat up, and so you're like, okay, I'm not sharing these feelings anymore. It's not safe.
Yeah, that's exactly that. I never put it together until you just said it. But honestly, that's always been me. I've always been quiet. Like, I'd rather not say any. I used to not rather say anything during a fight. We had a war room call yesterday, and you were talking actually a little bit about this, and I was about 4 or 5 minutes behind schedule and getting on the call because I was having a collision with my wife. And it was actually, I didn't want to leave it in the middle and not be productive. And I was having a collision with her that was just basically our disagreement on help and around the house. And like, now that I'm working from home because of COVID, like, I should do more. And honestly, it was like, you know, and we don't disrespect each other, but in a sense, it was like, no, fuck you, do more. Like, and I was like, no, fuck you, I'm the money, I'm the president. No, you know, like these conversations that we have in our head. And it was just about the ability to collide. And that's what makes my relationship with her so great right now, is that we don't hold back. And the makeup is better than the blandness of not colliding. And we grow from these things. And it's just an amazing new way to live. And in the last year and a half, man, there were friends that I had 2 years ago that would not know who I was today. I don't speak the same. I don't act the same. I don't go out drinking. I don't, like, I used to go through a bottle of scotch was sitting with friends and we'd go through a bottle of scotch like it was nothing. I don't do any of that anymore. They wouldn't recognize who I am today. I am a different man altogether.
Wow, beautiful. That's That's where the divine power lives in you. And, all these things are no longer a way to take you away from that divine power. And you're like, hey, I don't never want to be so sedated that I can't, feel the hand of God. I can't have conversations with God. I want to be in that presence, and that drives my life. So, John, as we come to the end of at least this chapter of this conversation, hopefully we'll see you. You're in San Diego, so we'll see you here in the podcast room very soon. As soon as we get kind of like over this whole COVID-19 preliminary situation. If there's a man sitting there and listening to us right now, watching this, and you're sitting there, and on the other side of the camera, you envision a man just like John a year and a half ago, sitting at a restaurant alone, moments before those guys walked out. Like, just bring yourself to that chair, man. And if you're talking today right now to a guy exactly in that seat, what would you say to understand where he's at, to have empathy to where he's at? And what would you tell him to go?
If there was any advice that I would be able to give, I don't know if this is an exact answer to the question that you're asking, but if there's any advice that I would give, say me sitting in that chair, it would be that it's okay to let go of the guilt and shame that comes with everything that you've done. And you can start from a new unit of time. And in a very short amount of time, you can not only get back on track, but you won't recognize yourself from the progress, from the gains, from the connections, from the conversations, from the collisions, from the self-realization that you could have. And it all starts with letting go of the ego, which leads to guilt and shame and hiding and stories and all of the things that makes a man stay alone in that chair, replaying all of the shit that he's done wrong his entire fucking life.
Well said. And there are so many men out there replaying guilt and shame constantly, daily, if not moments to moments, finding themselves falling apart. Could be under the shower, could be the moment they're alone, the guilt and shame hunts them. And the question of what if comes up. What if she finds out? What if he finds out? What if I'm revealed? What if I can't hide this anymore? What if? And the pressure of that and how it affects their mood, how it affects their decision, how it affects their love they want to give to their children and find themselves incapable of distributing that love for some unknown reason, how it creates a parasite inside of their mind that paralyzes their expression and their feeling and who they truly are. There are so many men out there. And if you're listening to this and you kind of feel that, that you may be that guy, or that you know of a guy that has this parasite in his mind, that has been paralyzed in his expression, and in fact has shared with you that, man, I need some fucking help, or man, I'm not happy, or man, in other words, me and my wife fights all the time, or man, I have so much pressure on me, or other words, man, I'm stressed, right? When you hear a guy say I'm stressed, that's a lie.
That guy is actually closer to it than the guy who's bragging about something wrong that he did. The guy that's bragging about it, saying how great it was, actually is in a little bit more pain than the guy who's saying, man, I wish this, not. But like the guy who's actually looking and bragging about it is the one that needs the help even more, because the guy you're talking about is closer to getting better.
Correct. The bragging guy needs to literally needs a fucking kick in the fucking dick. And if you're willing to kick him in his fucking dick, go ahead.
Yeah.
But often that guy needs to wake the fuck up.
Yeah.
When you were sitting on the chair, you didn't get your dick kicked. You were ready at that time. You
Yeah.
kicked yourself so much with guilt and shame that like it was it. It was it. It's like there's gotta be something. There's gotta be a path for me to discover this balance and this harmony.
Yeah.
And so like hopefully this conversation resonates as the dialogue that was happening in your mind a year and a half ago, sitting on that chair, you know, watching these guys pass by. And now it's me and you on this call. Now you're the guy to listen a year and a half to the podcast. You're sitting on the podcast now. And
can't believe that, man. Thank you. And I
crazy.
owe you a lot, man.
Thank you. And you followed your heart. And that is the greatest example that you can show your 3 children today, that your dad actually followed his heart. Your dad followed his heart. And here's the proof. Many can say that, but now it's documented. It's known. And for years to come, this is the biggest asset that you can leave them behind. Years after you're gone, they can say, my dad was the kind of dad that followed his heart. I know this for fact. Because my motherfucker was sitting in a restaurant in San Diego and saw a few guys. And from the moment he saw those guys, he never looked back. So the proudest moment of your life is all the steps that you've taken always in front. I'm not saying you didn't stop for a while and catch your breath, but you never stop going backward. I'm not saying you're the fucking fastest. I'm not saying there's a fucking race. What I'm saying is that you did rule number 4. Don't ever fucking quit. And you just stated, you said it yourself at the beginning of the call, man. Like, hey, this is a process. So as long as you're in the process, doesn't matter, you know, doesn't matter what level the have it all lifestyle you're living. So as long as you live, because if you don't live, you've actually seen the dark ocean and how easily you can drift into there. And that's a place no motherfucker wants to go.
Yeah, that's no place to be, man.
So anyway, I want to thank you for your time today. I want to thank everybody listening to this call and to this conversation. And if this conversation truly resonates in your heart and you find someone that you could actually send this to, we ask you to do that. Pay it forward. That's what this podcast is designed for. John, thanks so much for being on the call once again. We'll see you soon. Gentlemen,
Thank you, Coach.
Take care of yourself and each other. And until next time.